Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to another edition of Crimes of the Week International. Authorities in the Australian state of Victoria say that 2 suspected thieves have been arrested and hospitalized this week after they led police on a dangerous vehicle chase that ended in a dramatic crash. According to reports, the situation began at around 3 a.m. on September 24th, when police received a call about a burglary in progress at a business in the Melbourne suburb of Dandenong South. They arrived to find that the business's generator had been stolen, along with several other valuables, and that one of its receiving bay doors had been destroyed. By that time, those responsible had already fled. Not long after, though, authorities were able to catch up with the 2 suspects, identified only as 2 men ages 28 and 32. The pair were in a Toyota Hiace van on nearby Langley Crescent. Rather than giving themselves up to the officers, however, the suspects reportedly decided to fight. A short physical altercation occurred, during which one of the suspects allegedly bit a police officer on the arm and punched him in the head multiple times. The suspects then rammed a police vehicle with their Toyota and sped off, prompting a chase. This pursuit reportedly lasted for some time, finally ending at around 7 a.m. when the suspects ran a red light and crashed into a white Audi at an intersection in the suburb of St. Kilda East, about 20 miles northwest of the original crime scene. The accident was quite serious, causing the Toyota to flip onto its driver's side. While the driver of the Audi thankfully walked away from the crash with only minor injuries, the same couldn't be said for the 2 suspects. Due to the severity of the collision, both men were trapped in the vehicle for over an hour while emergency responders worked to save them. This was particularly difficult in the case of the 28-year-old suspect, who was on the driver's side and whose head was reportedly pinned between the vehicle and the road. The exact nature of the men's conditions have not been shared, though it's said that the 28-year-old was seriously injured. At the time of this recording, both men are in the hospital and are under round-the-clock watch by police. The officer who was allegedly attacked by the suspects was also treated and has since been released. Currently, no information appears to be available about what charges the 2 suspects might be facing as a result of the incident. Authorities in the English town of Bolton say that a 40-year-old man has been sentenced to prison this week after he pleaded guilty to a number of offenses related to attacking his former girlfriend and deliberately driving his car into the home of an elderly woman. According to reports, the incident began in the early morning hours of November 2nd, 2021, when 40-year-old Michael Vose showed up at his then-girlfriend's apartment in the town of West Oughton while extremely intoxicated. After accusing the woman of cheating on him, Vose reportedly attacked her, putting his hands around her neck at least twice. He also did over $1,000 worth of damage to her bedroom. When the woman managed to force Vose from the room and call police, he took off in his SUV. Before he did, though, he repeatedly claimed that he intended to take his own life. While still under the influence of a heavy mixture of drugs and alcohol, Vose continued to drive around the area, arriving in Bolton at around 5:15 a.m. When he did, he reportedly drove over a roundabout at a high speed, directly towards the home of 92-year-old Edna Kearns. The resulting violent crash flung the elderly woman from bed, seriously injuring both of her legs and fracturing one of her ankles. Despite his alleged intentions, Vose, however, survived. Sadly, according to reports, Edna would never return home again. Though she did not die as a direct result of the crash, her injuries kept her hospitalized and unable to get around. She died of an unrelated illness in April of this year. Vose recently pleaded guilty to a number of charges related to the case for assaulting his girlfriend, causing criminal damage to her apartment, causing injury by dangerous driving, and causing criminal damage to Edna's home. Though he claimed to be remorseful, prosecutors pointed out that lights had been on in Edna's home at the time of the crash, so he should have reasonably known that it was occupied. They also pointed to Vos's 9 previous convictions for crimes including blackmail and kidnapping. This week, Vos was sentenced to 4 years in prison for his crimes and given a 5-year ban from driving. Apparently, extra time was also added to the ban to make sure that the 5 years won't start until Vos is actually out of prison. The owners of a primate rescue sanctuary in the Democratic Republic of the Congo say that they are devastated this week after 3 baby chimpanzees were recently stolen from them and held for ransom by a group of unknown criminals. According to reports, the incident began in the early morning hours of September 9th, when the group of kidnappers broke into the sanctuary in Lubumbashi, a city in the southernmost region of the country near the border with Zambia. About an hour later, the criminals sent a video to the owners of the sanctuary, Frank Chantereau and his wife Roxanne. In it, they showed off the 3 baby chimpanzees that they had stolen, who they threatened to hurt or kill if the couple didn't pay a massive ransom. Terrifyingly, the culprits stated that they had initially planned to kidnap the couple's children, who were supposed to visit the sanctuary on vacation. However, when the children changed their plans, they opted to take the chimps instead. Frank and Roxanne say that the animals, who they named Cesar, Hussein, and Manga, were 3 of the 5 baby chimps that their sanctuary had rescued so far this year. The other 2 young chimps were present at the time the kidnapping took place, but apparently were able to hide from the criminals. Frank and Roxanne say that they are devastated by the kidnapping, and that they are extremely worried about Cesar, Hussein, and Manga. Even if they could afford to pay the ludicrously high ransom that the criminals have asked for, though, they state that they would be hesitant to do so, both because of the precedent it would set and because there would be nothing preventing the kidnappers from doing it again. Sadly, it has now been over 2 weeks since the criminals have made contact, and the couple fear the worst. According to reports, this is not the first time that the sanctuary, which is known as Jeunes Animaux Confisqués au Katanga, or young animals confiscated in Katanga, has been targeted by criminals. Just months after it was founded in 2006, a group broke in and set fire to the chimpanzee sleeping area, resulting in the tragic deaths of 2 of the 5 animals that were there at the time. In 2013, the sanctuary was the scene of another arson, when their education center was set ablaze. Thankfully, that time there were no deaths. Frank and Roxanne say that these kinds of incidents are all in the service of the illegal ape trade, which sees hundreds of chimpanzees killed or captured in the wild every year, so that they can be smuggled to wealthy buyers around the continent and overseas. While Frank claims that this is the first kidnapping for ransom case he has heard of involving baby chimps, he worries that these kinds of crimes could become more common, especially as the numbers of wild chimpanzees continue to dwindle and poachers see sanctuaries like his as easy targets. Unfortunately, at the current time, it appears that the criminals behind the kidnapping have yet to be identified. Authorities in the Thai province of Pathum, Thani, say that a 41-year-old man has been arrested and is facing charges this week after he allegedly pretended to be a good Samaritan at the scene of a car accident, but was really using it as an opportunity to steal valuables from one of those involved. According to reports, the incident began on the evening of September 13th, when a man in a Mercedes accidentally crashed into a motorcycle rider outside of a market in the province's Muang district. Attempting to do the right thing, the Mercedes driver immediately got out, called emergency responders, and tried to tend to the injured person on the motorcycle. As he was doing so, the driver was approached by a 41-year-old man named Pongdate Lutrakun. Lutrakun said that he had seen everything that had happened and that he wanted to help. After providing the Mercedes driver with his contact details, Lutrakun said that he would stay behind and explain everything to police, while the driver rode in the ambulance with the person on the motorcycle. The driver thanked Lutrakun, helped the motorcycle rider into the ambulance, and they started heading towards the hospital. It wasn't until they were part of the way there that the Mercedes driver realized that his bag was missing. Inside had been a diamond ring, as well as a watch worth 6 million baht, or about $158,000 US. After making sure that everything was okay at the hospital, the driver began repeatedly calling the number that Lutracun had provided him. Bizarrely, it appears that the 41-year-old gave him his actual contact details, though when he answered, he pretended that he didn't know who the driver was. That's when the driver went to police. Because Lutracun had done such a poor job covering his tracks, he was arrested a little over a week later, on September 22nd. At the time, he was still in possession of the watch and the ring, which he handed over. He told police that he had tried to sell them, but everyone refused to buy them, either telling him that they were too expensive, or that it was obvious that he had stolen them. Lutracun was subsequently charged, and is now reportedly facing a sentence of up to 5 years in prison, as well as a fine roughly equating to between $50 to $260 US. Authorities in the South African province of Limpopo say that they are investigating a tragic case of suspected domestic violence this week after a man allegedly gunned down 3 people, 2 of whom were members of his own family. According to reports, the incident began at around 11 p.m. on September 26th, when police were called to a home in the town of Bothashoek, about 150 miles east of the capital of Pretoria. They arrived to find the bodies of 2 women and a man. All 3 had died from gunshot wounds. The women were later identified as mother and daughter 42-year-old Tamina Clara Morema and 24-year-old Nomasanto Morema. The man's identity is currently unknown, though it's alleged that he was having an affair with Tamina. On September 28th, investigators announced that they had arrested a 58-year-old man in connection with the crime. The man has not been identified by name, but is reportedly Tamina's husband and Nomasanto's father. Locals say that the terrible crime has sent shockwaves through the community. The 58-year-old suspect is said to be a teacher at a local primary school. While no motive behind the crime has been officially confirmed by police, they have publicly stated that domestic violence cannot be ruled out. At the time of this recording, however, the exact circumstances that led up to the killings remains a mystery. The situation is still developing. This week, authorities in the Japanese city of Osaka announced the arrest of a notorious theft suspect with a bizarre MO, one who they have come to refer to by the nickname Raincoat Man. According to reports, for several years, police have been baffled by a thief in the city's Abeno ward, who seemed to have a strange fixation with women's raincoats. Women all over the ward were reporting the garments missing. In particular, the poncho-style raincoats that are usually made out of plastic or vinyl that many people wear over their clothes when going out on rainy days. While authorities theorized that the thefts might be the work of a single culprit, dubbing the suspect Raincoat Man, they apparently weren't able to make very much progress in the case until recently, when they managed to link a 51-year-old newspaper delivery man named Yoshio Yoda to several of the thefts. When a search of Yoda's home was conducted, police realized that he was the perpetrator that they had been searching for all along, when they discovered roughly 360 women's raincoats in his possession. When questioned about the raincoats, Yoda reportedly revealed the bizarre motivation behind the thefts. He said that he found the clinginess of wet raincoats arousing, stating, quote, "I get as excited seeing women in raincoats as I do seeing women in lingerie." Police say that Yoda built up his stash of stolen raincoats by following women who he saw riding bicycles, waiting until they left the bikes unattended before checking their baskets to see if they had left raincoats behind. The 51-year-old also reportedly did random searches of parking lots, looking out for bicycles with child seats attached or painted with what he thought were feminine colors, as he claimed these were more likely to belong to women. While police already had reason to believe that Yoda had been stealing women's raincoats as far back as 2013 at the time of his arrest, when he was interviewed, he corrected them. He confessed that he'd actually been doing this since around 2009. Though it's unclear what kind of penalty the 51-year-old could be facing for the strange thefts, authorities have calculated the cost of the stolen goods at about 1.12 million yen. The sum works out to about $7,800 US. Authorities in the Mexican state of Sinaloa say that they are investigating the death of a 21-year-old TikTok influencer this week after she was gunned down near her home after receiving a mysterious phone call. According to reports, 21-year-old Carla Padini left her home in the city of Culiacán at about 10:30 p.m. on September 20th, after her mother says she received a strange phone call telling her to come outside. Upon leaving the residence, she never returned. Carla's lifeless body was tragically discovered the next day close to an intersection near her home. She had been shot numerous times. While no suspects have been revealed so far, residents in the vicinity of the crime scene told authorities that they had seen several armed men prowling around the area. Few other details have been revealed at the time of this recording, though a representative working on the case claimed in an interview, quote, "We are carrying out the investigation with the utmost secrecy so as not to alert the possible suspects." According to reports, prior to her death, Carla was active on TikTok, where she posted content about fashion and dance to her more than 90,000 followers. In the past few days, hundreds have taken to the comments section of her final video, posted just hours before her murder, to express their grief and offer condolences to her family. Currently, no motive behind the horrific killing appears to be known, and the situation is still developing. Authorities in Russia's Udmurt Republic say that at least 17 people are dead this week and 24 others are injured after a 34-year-old gunman carried out a horrific attack at a school in the region's capital. According to reports, the incident unfolded sometime on September 26th, when the gunman, later identified as 34-year-old Artem Kazantsev, showed up at the number 88 school in the city of Izhevsk, armed with 2 handguns and a large supply of ammunition. After shooting 2 security guards, Kazantsev allegedly began to walk through the halls of the school, opening fire on those inside. The terrifying ordeal reportedly sent students, teachers, and other faculty members scrambling as they desperately tried to escape the attack. Others hid in classrooms, hoping that Kazantsev would simply pass them by. At least one student, identified only as a 7th grade boy, jumped out of a 3rd-floor window to avoid the gunfire, breaking one of his legs in the process. Though it's unclear how exactly the situation finally came to an end, it appears that Kazantsev eventually took his own life in one of the school's classrooms. His body was found by authorities, along with the 2 weapons he used to carry out the attack and some of his ammunition. While officials have revised the death toll several times since the horrific event took place, currently it's said that at least 17 people were killed, while another 24 were injured. Tragically, at least 11 of the deceased victims are said to be children, many of whom were as young as 7 years old. As for a motive behind the attack, authorities say that they are still investigating. However, they have admitted that several disturbing discoveries have already been made. Among them were the fact that Kazantsev was reportedly wearing a shirt with a swastika on it while carrying out the shooting, and that the word hate was written in red paint on some of the ammunition magazines used in the attack. Other items had the words Columbine and Dylan and Eric written on them, an apparent reference to the 1999 Columbine school massacre. Reports allege that Kazantsev was a former student at the number 88 school, but do not mention when he attended. At the time of this recording, the situation is still under investigation. Before we wrap up, we'd like to take a minute to thank our amazing supporters over on Patreon. As many of you are aware, our situation on YouTube always seems to be a bit uncertain, but our patrons help to ensure that we can continue to make content like this long term without having to worry as much about what surprises might be thrown our way. Plus, patrons also get access to 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. If you'd like to help support the channel directly, head over to patreon.com/crimezone to join. You can also find that link in the description below. As always, Thank you so much for watching, and take care.